A dog refuses to leave a grave, and when the police decide to investigate, they uncover a dangerous secret that leaves everyone terrified at the Cemetery of Hope. There was a dog named Loki who was very special. Every day he stayed near a specific grave. It was the resting place of someone who had been buried there, and Loki never left the spot, not even to play or eat. It was as if he were protecting someone very important. The people who passed by found it very strange and began to talk about Loki. "Why doesn't he leave that spot?" the residents would ask. Loki always seemed to be on high alert, as if he were guarding the grave against something. He wouldn't let anyone approach and barked at anyone who tried to get too close. His behavior was so unusual that soon the entire town knew about the protective dog. Children started visiting the cemetery just to see him. They tried to pet him, but Loki maintained his seriousness and returned to guarding the grave. It was as if he knew something no one else did. Although no one understood, everyone respected Loki's dedication and wondered what could be going on. One day, while walking through the cemetery, Elizabeth noticed Loki standing by the grave. She found it very strange and decided to get closer to observe. Loki wouldn't let Elizabeth get too close, but she could tell he was truly protecting that spot. Concerned about the little dog, Elizabeth decided to seek help. She went to speak to Jose, the caretaker of the cemetery, and told him what she had seen. "Jose, there's a dog that won't leave a grave," she said, intrigued. Elizabeth looked at Loki and with a tone of voice filled with mystery said, "It seems like he's guarding something very important." Jose, who had known Loki for some time, also found the dog's behavior peculiar. Intrigued, he responded, "Let's see what's going on, Elizabeth." The two decided to return to the cemetery together to try to better understand why Loki was acting this way. When they arrived, the scene was the same. Loki remained firmly by the grave, his eyes vigilant and his body in a protective stance. Jose tried to approach, but Loki immediately became agitated, sending a clear warning that no one should get closer. It was as if he were guarding something incredibly valuable, something only he understood. Jose looked at Elizabeth, who appeared equally puzzled, and said, "We need more help to figure this out." That's when Jose decided to call the police. He explained the situation in detail and asked for a team to investigate what was happening. When the police arrived, they were surprised by the scene. The little dog was there, unyielding, guarding the grave with a determination that seemed almost supernatural. The officers tried to approach, but Loki reacted immediately, barking fiercely and baring his teeth, as if he were protecting a great secret or hidden treasure. Loki's intensity did not go unnoticed. One of the officers, intrigued, asked aloud, "What is this dog trying to tell us?" Realizing the situation required care, they decided to call in an animal behavior specialist to try to calm Loki and uncover the mystery he seemed to guard so zealously. Meanwhile, the buzz in town grew louder. News of the strange occurrence spread quickly, and soon residents began gathering at the cemetery, driven by growing curiosity. Everyone wanted to understand what made that small dog so stubbornly protect the grave, as if a dark secret was about to be revealed. The town's curiosity peaked when the police arrived at the cemetery. Everyone wanted to understand why Loki, the little guardian dog, was acting in such a peculiar way. What could be happening in that place? Quickly, a crowd began to form around the grave where Loki remained steadfast. Children, adults, and even the elderly gathered, intrigued, trying to unravel the mystery. "Do you think there's treasure buried there?" a boy asked, his eyes shining with the possibility of a pirate-worthy adventure. "Or maybe Loki is protecting someone really important," someone else suggested, heightening the suspense in the air. Meanwhile, the police debated their next steps. Something about that grave demanded deeper investigation. But what? The mystery hung over everyone like a shadow. Anticipation mounted when the police finally secured a court order to exhume the grave. The news spread like wildfire through the town, drawing an even larger crowd to the cemetery. It was a historic moment for the otherwise quiet place. Children stood on tiptoe trying to get a better view, while adults murmured theories, feeding the collective curiosity. "Do you think we'll discover something amazing?" asked a child, their voice brimming with expectation and excitement. The officers began the process with extreme care. Loki didn't budge, watching every movement with his attentive eyes, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Silence enveloped the cemetery, broken only by the delicate sounds of tools as the officers worked. When the lid of the coffin began to lift, Everyone held their breath. It was as if time had stopped. But to everyone's shock, what they found was completely unexpected. The coffin was empty. The crowd was overcome with astonishment, and a confused murmur rippled through the onlookers. Loki, however, remained firm, as if saying that this was not the end of the mystery. What did this emptiness mean? The answer seemed to be just beginning to unfold. When the lid of the coffin revealed the emptiness, a murmur of disbelief swept through the crowd. Inside, there were only a few old blankets. "How is this possible? Where is the body?" an elderly woman asked, incredulous. The officers, just as baffled as the crowd, realized something very strange was happening. They decided to dig deeper and contacted the family of Sebastian, the man who was supposedly buried there. The family explained that Sebastian had died in a devastating fire, and his body had been completely consumed by the flames. For this reason, the coffin was kept closed throughout the ceremony. But instead of resolving the mystery, this explanation only deepened the doubts. Elizabeth, who had been following everything from the start, felt something didn't add up. If Sebastian died in the fire, why is Loki so protective of this grave? She wondered, deeply puzzled. Even the officers were not convinced. They decided to investigate further, and that's when a shocking detail came to light. Sebastian's phone had been used days after his supposed death. This revelation hit the town like a bombshell. Could Sebastian be alive? People began to ask, and the possibility sparked a whirlwind of speculation. Determined to uncover the truth, the police began tracking the phone's activity. What they discovered left everyone speechless. Indeed, someone had used Sebastian's phone days after the fire that supposedly took his life. But who? And why? The doubt hung over the cemetery and everyone following the case like a heavy cloud. Sebastian, a young man beloved by many, seemed to be involved in something far greater than anyone could have imagined. As the investigation deepened, the police discovered that in the months leading up to his death, Sebastian had been involved in something mysterious and possibly dangerous. The town, which had once simply mourned the loss of a young man, now found itself faced with an enigma that could change everything. Loki, the loyal guardian dog, seemed to know more than anyone, and his unwavering vigil at the grave continued to fuel questions. Could Sebastian still be alive? And if he was, what was he trying to hide? There were records indicating that Sebastian had been investigating something important before the fire. Meanwhile, Loki, the faithful dog, continued his tireless watch beside the grave, as if he were guarding a secret no one else could comprehend. This only heightened everyone's curiosity. The village children created imaginative stories, claiming that Loki was a hero who knew the truth about what had really happened. The police investigation brought forth new, surprising revelations. They discovered that Sebastian's phone had been used to make calls to unknown numbers. Determined to follow every lead, they began tracing these calls, hoping to find information about Sebastian's possible whereabouts. But just when it seemed the mystery might be on the verge of being solved, something entirely unexpected happened, making the story even more intriguing. Alexander, Sebastian's father, was furious when he learned about the investigation at the cemetery. In a fit of rage, he went to the police station and confronted the officers. "You're making us relive all this pain again. I want you to stop this investigation immediately," Alexander demanded, visibly shaken. The intensity of his reaction left everyone unsettled. Amelia, Sebastian's mother, also began to find her husband's behavior very strange. In recent months, Alexander had been acting differently. He avoided talking about Sebastian and became extremely irritated whenever their son's name was mentioned. With each passing day, Amelia felt that something was wrong. Why is he acting like this? What is he hiding? She wondered, growing more suspicious by the minute. The questions kept piling up, and the mystery surrounding Sebastian and the grave guarded by Loki seemed far from being solved. After all, what could Alexander know? And how did Loki, the loyal dog, fit into this enigma? The silence surrounding the truth began to feel as heavy as the secret everyone was trying to uncover. Amelia knew something was amiss and couldn't ignore the signs her intuition was giving her. Determined, she decided to support the continuation of the investigation, even without Alexander's knowledge. "He's hiding something. I feel it in my heart," she thought, as she tried to make sense of her husband's actions. Alexander had always been so protective, but now he seemed intent on burying the truth, and Amelia couldn't ignore it any longer. With renewed courage, she approached the police. "We need to uncover the truth, no matter the cost," she declared with a firmness that surprised even herself. "I cannot let this mystery go unanswered. Not when there's a possibility my son is still alive. Her mind wandered to recent memories, like the nights Alexander locked himself in the office, whispering on the phone, avoiding her eyes whenever she tried to talk about Sebastian. Amelia knew she couldn't ignore these clues any longer. Looking at Loki, the loyal dog who never abandoned Sebastian's grave, Amelia felt a fresh wave of determination. Loki knows something, and I will find out too, she thought, her resolve hardening. She was convinced that with the police's help and Loki's persistence, the mystery would be unraveled. With Amelia's unwavering support, the police decided to press on with the investigation. Their suspicions fell on Alexander, whose resistance to letting the case progress seemed to conceal something even bigger. They began monitoring him more closely, trying to understand his urgency to shut everything down. Meanwhile, Amelia did her part, gathering information and keeping a watchful eye, determined to uncover the truth about what had really happened to her son. And you, following this thrilling story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you love mysteries and extraordinary dogs like Loki. After all, will the truth about Sebastian finally come to light? Stay with us to uncover the conclusion of this incredible journey. Meanwhile, Loki remained steadfast by the grave, his vigil more determined than ever. It was as if he knew the truth was about to be revealed. The children of the town, who had once only watched with curiosity, now gathered around Loki, telling stories and trying to cheer him up. "Loki, you know where Sebastian is, don't you?" asked a little girl as she gently petted his head. Loki wagged his tail softly but stayed rooted in his post, as if refusing to abandon his mission. In the meantime, the police intensified their investigations and began monitoring Alexander's movements. Soon, clues emerged suggesting that he was indeed hiding something. They decided to follow him discreetly, hoping he would unintentionally reveal crucial information. Amelia, though anguished, believed they were on the right track. Her determination grew with each passing day, fueled by the hope that the truth would finally come to light. The community, for its part, continued to speculate. Everyone wanted answers but understood they would need to be patient. The mystery surrounding Sebastian kept everyone on edge. Could he still be alive? Amelia, with the support of the police and Loki's help, was resolute in uncovering what had really happened and perhaps bringing Sebastian back. After weeks of cautious investigation, the police made an unexpected discovery. They noticed a curious habit of Loki's. Every day, he would leave the cemetery for a few hours and head toward an old, seemingly abandoned house not far away. This behavior caught their attention. Why would Loki go to that place? What could be there? Intrigued, the police decided to follow Loki on his next walk and investigate the house more closely. Meanwhile, Amelia's heart raced, sensing that this was the beginning of something big. Perhaps at last they were about to uncover the secret Loki had been guarding so fiercely. When they arrived at the house, the officers noticed that despite its abandoned appearance, there were clear signs of recent activity. Bowls of food and water were carefully placed, showing that someone was taking care of Loki. Who could be doing this? The officers wondered, now even more determined to uncover the truth behind the mystery. They decided to enter the house and began searching the premises. Amid the dust and old furniture, they found a pile of diaries and notes. As they examined them, the officers quickly realized they belonged to Sebastian. Each page seemed to reveal a side of the story no one had known. But when they opened one of the diaries, they discovered something truly shocking. Sebastian had written about a terrible discovery. His father, Alexander, was using the family farm to grow drugs. In the pages, Sebastian described his shock and horror upon learning of his father's involvement in something so dangerous. He also wrote about his decision to confront Alexander and try to convince him to stop. The most disturbing detail? The last entry was made exactly 1 day before his supposed death in the fire. "So, Sebastian knew something that could put him in danger," commented one of the officers, his voice heavy with concern. Amelia, who was following the investigation closely, felt those words hit her heart like a blow. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought, "My son was trying to do the right thing." The intuition that had been with her since the beginning of the story now made even more sense. She had known something was wrong, and that her son had been involved in something much bigger than anyone had imagined. The officers continued their search and found another crucial piece of evidence: letters that had been written to Sebastian but never sent. In the letters, someone expressed fear and concern for the family's safety, as if they knew something terrible was about to happen. Each discovery deepened the mystery, and Amelia's determination to uncover the whole truth only grew. What else could those diaries reveal? And above all, could Sebastian still be alive? The answers seemed to be drawing closer, but they also grew more dangerous. In the diaries found in the abandoned house, there were startling details about Alexander's activities, lists of names, schedules for suspicious meetings, and dangerous connections. It all painted a clear picture. Sebastian was at the center of something extremely risky and compromising. Loki, the loyal dog who had never left the grave, seemed to have guided the police straight to the key point of this mystery. "Loki, you're truly amazing," Amelia said, emotional as she petted the dog. Loki wagged his tail, satisfied, as if he knew he had fulfilled an important mission. News of what Loki had helped uncover quickly reached the town's children, who began to see him as a true hero. To them, Loki was not just an ordinary dog, but a guardian of the truth. Meanwhile, the police, now armed with the information from the diaries, realized they held a crucial lead. It was clear that Alexander was involved in something very serious, and that Sebastian, in trying to confront him, might have been silenced. Determined to get to the bottom of the matter, the police decided to interrogate Alexander again, this time armed with the new evidence. Amelia, however, was devastated. Never, not even in her worst nightmares, could she have imagined that something like this would happen to her family. Her mind was flooded with questions and anguish. How can this be happening? "My Sebastian, where are you?" she thought, her heart weighed down by pain and uncertainty. In the preceding months, Amelia had already noticed strange changes in Alexander's behavior. He avoided talking about Sebastian, averted his gaze whenever their son's name was mentioned, and became irritable whenever the topic came up. Why is he acting like this? What is he hiding? Amelia wondered, trying to find a rational explanation for her husband's increasingly suspicious behavior. Now, with the new discoveries, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, but the picture that emerged was grim. What else could Alexander be hiding? Could he be capable of hurting his own son to protect his secrets? And most importantly, where was Sebastian? With every step, the mystery deepened, and Amelia's determination to find the truth grew stronger, guided by the hope that Sebastian was still out there, waiting to be saved. For a time, Amelia tried to cling to the explanation that Sebastian might have run away with a girlfriend, and that Alexander was trying to shield the family from shame or worry. But now, with the new findings, she knew the truth was far darker. Could Alexander have hurt someone? Could he have done something terrible to keep his secrets safe? These questions haunted Amelia day and night, robbing her of sleep and peace. The revelation that Alexander was involved with drugs hit like a devastating blow. So, this is where our money comes from, she thought, horrified. The image of Alexander, whom she had always seen as a protective husband and loving father, was crumbling before her eyes. He was no longer the man she trusted. Now he was a stranger filled with dark secrets. Desperate, Amelia turned her gaze to Loki, the loyal dog who never left the empty grave. "Loki, you knew all along, didn't you? You knew something was wrong," she said, stroking the dog's fur. Loki wagged his tail gently, as if he understood her pain and anguish. His presence was a small comfort, a ray of strength amidst the storm consuming her life. As she watched Loki, memories of Sebastian began to flood her mind. She fondly recalled how her son had always been so happy with Loki by his side. Those moments warmed her heart and brought a glimmer of light to the darkness now surrounding her life. Sebastian and Loki had something special, a bond that went beyond a simple relationship between a boy and his dog. In her mind, Amelia could see images of Sebastian and Loki running together in the park, laughing and playing as if the whole world belonged to them. Loki had always been by Sebastian's side, and now he seemed to be doing the same for her. These thoughts gave her strength to keep going. There was something much bigger behind all of this, and Amelia was determined not to rest until she uncovered the entire truth. Loki ran across the grass, tongue out and tail wagging in pure joy, chasing the ball Sebastian had just thrown. "Go, Loki! Get it!" shouted the boy, laughing as the dog dashed forward with determination, eager to retrieve the ball as quickly as possible. The bond between them was palpable, a friendship that transcended any logical explanation. They were inseparable, and every moment together was filled with laughter, energy, and the kind of purity only true connections can bring. Amelia, watching from afar, still vividly remembered these scenes. The two seemed to live in their own world, where nothing else mattered. If they weren't playing fetch, they were immersed in a game of hide and seek. Sebastian always found the best hiding spots, proud of his creativity. But Loki, with his keen sense of smell, never took long to find him. Within minutes, there was Loki, sniffing and racing toward Sebastian, who couldn't help but laugh as he was discovered. One of Amelia's most cherished memories was from a picnic at the park. Sebastian and Loki, born adventurers, discovered a small stream hidden among the trees. Sebastian, with his characteristic adventurous spirit, decided it would be fun to cross it, even if it meant getting completely soaked. Without hesitation, Loki followed his friend, unbothered by the icy water or the splashes. They laughed so much that by the time they returned home, they were muddy and drenched, but wearing radiant smiles that filled Amelia's heart with joy. That day would forever remain etched in her memory as a symbol of simple, genuine happiness. Sebastian also loved training Loki. He would spend hours patiently teaching the dog new tricks, and Loki, always eager to learn, matched Sebastian's enthusiasm perfectly. Amelia could hear the excitement in her son's voice when he said, "Mom, look!" Loki can shake hands now. Loki, obedient as ever, would extend his paw for a handshake. Amelia clapped, proud of the bond the two shared. It was more than friendship. It was unconditional love, a partnership that seemed unbreakable. These memories, though sweet, now brought immense pain. Amelia felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions as she recalled the moments of joy shared with her son and his faithful companion. How could it all have been destroyed, she thought, tears welling up in her eyes. Her mind drifted to quiet nights when Sebastian would stroke Loki before bed. The boy whispered secrets into the dog's ear as if Loki were the only one in the world worthy of keeping his confidences. And Loki, as loyal as ever, slept at the foot of Sebastian's bed, a guardian who never left his post. Now there was Loki, still fulfilling his mission even in Sebastian's absence. He remained steadfast beside the empty grave, as if understanding that his presence was vital to Amelia and everyone seeking answers. Amelia knelt beside the dog, stroking his head tenderly. "Loki, you were always my son's best friend," she said, her voice breaking. Loki looked at her with eyes full of understanding, as if he knew exactly what she was feeling. His tail wagged softly, a gesture of comfort, as if to say, "We're still in this together." These memories were all Amelia had left at that moment. They warmed her heart but also deepened her pain, bringing forth all the unanswered questions. Why had this happened? Where was Sebastian? Was he still out there somewhere waiting to be found? And Loki, the loyal friend, did he know more than he let on? These questions echoed in her mind as she sat beside Loki, vowing to herself that she would not give up on finding the truth. "You were always there for him, Loki, and now you're here for me." Amelia whispered these words to the faithful dog, feeling that Loki understood Sebastian's absence as deeply as she did. This only strengthened her resolve to continue her relentless search for the truth. "We'll bring Sebastian back, Loki. Together we'll uncover the truth and find justice," she promised, gently stroking the dog, who seemed to share her determination. Meanwhile, the police investigation uncovered even more disturbing secrets. Sebastian's diaries revealed palpable anguish. He was horrified by what he had discovered about his father. In one entry, he wrote, "I can't believe my own father is involved in this." With every word, it became clear that Sebastian was facing a devastating internal battle, torn between his love for Alexander and his desire to do what was right. But his determination was evident. "I need to confront him and make him stop before it's too late," read another excerpt. The diary also revealed Sebastian's growing fear for his family's safety. He knew Alexander's actions were putting everyone at risk. "If I tell anyone, we'll be in danger," he wrote, "but I can't stay silent. I need to talk to my father and try to convince him to stop." Sebastian's final entry, written the day before his supposed death, was filled with courage and resolve. "Today I'm going to talk to my father. I can't delay this any longer. I need to protect him from himself and protect our family," he wrote, his firm handwriting reflecting his determination. "I hope he listens and does the right thing." Reading these words, the police understood the gravity of the situation. Sebastian knew too much about Alexander's illegal operations and was determined to put an end to them, even at the risk of his own life. His courage was admirable, but his position was dangerously precarious. When Amelia learned of these revelations, she felt a mix of pride and despair. Her son had been fighting to protect his family, facing a dilemma no young person should have to endure. She looked at Loki still by her side and whispered, "Sebastian knew what he was doing. He tried to do what was right, Loki, and we're going to help him, wherever he is." With every new discovery, the mystery seemed closer to being solved, but also darker. What had happened on that fateful day? And why had Alexander kept so many secrets? Loki, with his unshakable vigilance, seemed to be the link between the past and the truth everyone was seeking. The journey was far from over, but Amelia wouldn't rest until she brought justice to the fight Sebastian had started. As she read her son's words in the diaries, Amelia was overwhelmed by a mixture of pride and deep sadness. "My Sebastian, you were so brave," she thought as tears streamed down her face. "You tried to do what was right, even knowing the risks." Each word written by Sebastian revealed the strength and determination of a young man who, despite his fears, was willing to fight for the truth. But now more than ever, that truth needed to be uncovered. The police, aware of the seriousness of the situation, knew they couldn't waste any more time. Armed with the evidence from the diaries, they decided to confront Alexander. Amelia, consumed by the need to understand the extent of her husband's involvement, insisted on being present during the interrogation. She needed to see his reaction, to hear it with her own ears. As she prepared for the confrontation, her mind raced with thoughts. "I can't believe he did this," she repeated to herself, but her resolve was stronger. "I need to know the truth, for Sebastian, and for our family." During the interrogation, the police began asking incisive questions about Alexander's activities on the farm and his confrontation with Sebastian. At first, Alexander denied everything, attempting to dodge the accusations. But the evidence was overwhelming, and under increasing pressure, he finally broke down. What he confessed shocked everyone. Alexander admitted that his clients, involved in drug trafficking, had ordered him to kill Sebastian because the young man knew too much about their illegal operations. But Alexander, despite everything, couldn't bring himself to take his own son's life. Instead, he confessed to kidnapping Sebastian and hiding him in a house in another city, believing this was the only way to protect him. Amelia could hardly believe what she was hearing. Pain and anger swirled within her, but a spark of hope ignited. Sebastian might still be alive. Alexander was immediately arrested and taken to the station for further interrogation. For hours, the police pressed him, seeking detailed information about his criminal activities and, above all, Sebastian's whereabouts. With each new question, Alexander appeared more defeated, but the police weren't going to stop until they had all the answers. Amelia, closely following the events, felt her determination grow. Now there was a clear goal: to find Sebastian. What once seemed like an impossible mission now had a direction. Loki, standing beside Amelia, seemed to sense the shift. The loyal dog kept his gaze fixed, as if he too was waiting for the next step in this journey. What else lay ahead? The search for the truth was far from over, but for the first time, Amelia felt there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The pressure on Alexander grew with every passing moment. Finally, unable to bear the weight of his secrets, he broke, revealing the truth Amelia had both feared and longed to hear. "My clients ordered me to kill Sebastian because he knew too much about the drug trafficking operation," Alexander confessed, his voice trembling. He paused, his eyes filled with guilt, and continued, "But I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill my own son. Instead, I kidnapped him and hid him in a house in another city, trying to protect him." Alexander's words hit Amelia like a blow to the chest. A whirlwind of emotions overtook her. On one hand, she felt an almost indescribable relief knowing Sebastian might still be alive. On the other, she was devastated by Alexander's betrayal and the terrible choices he had made. Her voice barely emerged as she thought, "How could you do this, Alexander? You destroyed our family with your lies and crimes." The disgust in her expression was evident, but her pain soon gave way to determination. With Alexander's confession, the police, now armed with vital information, began planning a rescue operation. They knew they had to act quickly to ensure Sebastian's safety. Using the coordinates of the house where he was being kept, provided by Alexander, they assembled a team for the mission. The air was heavy with urgency and tension. Despite her shock and pain, Amelia didn't hesitate. "I need to be there when we find Sebastian," she said firmly. "He needs to know his mother never gave up on him." Her resolve was unshakable. No matter what had happened, she wouldn't abandon her son. Her mission now was to bring him home. As preparations were underway, Loki, the loyal dog who had guided Amelia and the police to so many vital clues, seemed to sense the gravity of the moment. He stayed by Amelia's side, as if understanding that his loyalty was still essential. His tail wagged, not with joy, but with an energy that conveyed hope and support. The convoy readied to depart, and Amelia kept her eyes fixed on the direction where she believed her son was. Every second mattered. She took a deep breath, petted Loki, and whispered, "We're coming, Sebastian. Mom is coming." The operation was about to begin, and what they would find at the house could change everything. The mystery was nearing its resolution, but questions still lingered. Was Sebastian truly safe? And if so, how had he survived all this time? Hope guided every step, but the future remained uncharted territory. Loki stayed close to Amelia, as if understanding that the mission to rescue Sebastian was finally underway. The children of the town, who had followed the story with wide-eyed curiosity and admiration, now looked at Loki as a true hero, a dog who had never wavered in his role. The rescue operation was quickly organized, and within hours, the police were on their way to the house where Sebastian was hidden. Amelia, sitting in the police car, prayed silently, drawing strength for what lay ahead. "Please, God, let my son be okay," she pleaded, her heart heavy and her hands trembling with anxiety. The road seemed endless, but when they finally arrived at the location Alexander had indicated, everyone knew they had to proceed with caution. The officers surrounded the house, weapons drawn, moving silently. The atmosphere inside the house was heavy and still, as though time had stopped there. But suddenly a sound broke the silence, bringing a glimmer of hope. It was a voice, faint but unmistakable. "I'm here," Sebastian said. Amelia's heart raced, and the officers, now alert, followed the voice to a locked room. Inside, they found Sebastian, visibly weakened but alive. The moment felt like a miracle. Seeing her son, Amelia's heart nearly stopped. She ran to him, wrapping him in a tight embrace with all the strength she had. "My son! Are you okay?" she cried, tears of relief streaming down her face. It was as if the weight she had carried since Sebastian's disappearance had momentarily lifted. Sebastian, still dazed and weak, returned her hug with the little strength he had. For the first time in months, he felt safe in his mother's arms. Loki, who had been by Amelia's side the entire time, couldn't contain his joy. Seeing Sebastian, the loyal dog began jumping with happiness, barking and wagging his tail with such energy it seemed he couldn't hold himself back. He ran to Sebastian, licking his face and letting out small whimpers of excitement. It was as if Loki had been waiting all this time to reunite with his best friend. The scene was pure relief and emotion. Despite the dark circumstances that had brought them there, Amelia felt a joy she had thought impossible after so much suffering. "We're together again, my son," she whispered, still holding Sebastian tightly, as if she would never let him go. The journey wasn't over, but the most important thing was there. Sebastian's life had been saved. Sebastian smiled, though weak, as he gently stroked Loki. "Loki, my friend, I knew you'd never give up on me," he said, his voice faint but filled with emotion. Loki continued bouncing around Sebastian, as if dancing with joy. He ran in circles, returned to lick Sebastian's face, and let out small barks, as if announcing to the world that his owner was finally safe. The children in the town, who had followed every detail of the mystery surrounding Loki and Sebastian, watched the scene with eyes shining with emotion. "Loki is a true hero," they whispered to each other, marveling at the role the dog had played in the entire story. Amelia, still holding her son, watched with tears in her eyes. She knew how much Loki meant to Sebastian and how this reunion was more than just a happy moment. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and unconditional love. "Loki, you're incredible," said Amelia, stroking the dog, who finally lay down at Sebastian's feet, still wagging his tail, as if unable to contain his happiness. Sebastian, trying to recover from the shock and weakness, looked at his mother and Loki. With a tired but grateful expression, he repeated, "I knew you'd never give up on me. You're my family, and now we're together again." Loki, sensing Sebastian's fragility, nestled beside him, offering warmth and comfort, as if he knew exactly what his owner needed. Sebastian continued petting Loki, feeling the loyalty and love only a true friend could provide. To him, Loki wasn't just a dog. He was a companion who had never abandoned him, even in the darkest moments. Meanwhile, Amelia was overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. The relief of seeing her son alive and safe was immense, but she couldn't ignore the anger and disappointment toward Alexander. He had tried to justify his actions, claiming he had kidnapped Sebastian to protect him, but no explanation seemed sufficient to ease the pain caused by his betrayal. Amelia looked at Sebastian and Loki, feeling that despite all the chaos and suffering, this moment marked a new beginning. The bond between them, strengthened by adversity, was now unbreakable. She knew there was still much to resolve, but in that moment, the reunion of her family was all that mattered. The pain and anger overflowed in every word Amelia spoke. "How could you do this, Alexander? How could you betray us like this?" she exclaimed, her voice laden with sadness and fury. Alexander, visibly shaken, tried to explain, but his voice trembled as he replied, "I did it to protect Sebastian, to keep him safe. If I hadn't, they would have killed him. I had no other choice." But for Amelia, those words brought no comfort. "You kidnapped him and hid him, making us all believe he was dead," she retorted, her voice breaking with sorrow. "You destroyed our family with your lies and criminal actions, and to think all this time, the money that sustained our home came from drug trafficking. How could you do this to us, Alexander?" The disappointment in her eyes was impossible to hide. "You should have trusted us. You could have told us the truth," she continued, feeling the weight of each word. "We could have found a solution together, but instead you chose betrayal and crime." Alexander, realizing the depth of his mistake, lowered his head in shame, unable to face Amelia. "I know I made a mistake, Amelia. I know nothing I say can justify what I did," he admitted, his voice low and full of regret. "But please, believe me when I say I only wanted to protect our son." Alexander's words, though sincere, weren't enough to soothe Amelia's heart. She interrupted him with a cry of anguish. "You almost destroyed our family." Tears began streaming down Amelia's face as she continued, unable to contain the intensity of her emotions. "You put us through hell, Alexander. You made us believe Sebastian was dead. Do you understand what that did to me, to our family? How could you make that decision on your own and leave us to carry this pain?" The silence that followed was heavy, filled with hurt and regret. Alexander kept his head down, unable to find words to counter the brutal truth Amelia had laid bare. For her, the betrayal was so profound that no explanation could undo the damage caused. Amelia felt that the trust had been irreparably broken, and now the only focus that remained was to rebuild what could still be saved, starting with Sebastian, who needed all the love and support to heal from the trauma. "And all this because of your ambition and arrogance. How could I ever forgive you?" Amelia asked, her voice laden with pain and disbelief. Alexander remained silent. He knew his actions had caused irreparable harm. Amelia's trust was shattered, and their family, which once seemed unbreakable, was now in pieces. He looked at Amelia, still holding Sebastian tightly, and saw clearly the reflection of the suffering he had caused. "I will pay for my crimes," Alexander said, resignation heavy in his voice. "I know I deserve to be punished for what I've done, but I want you to know that I love Sebastian. Everything I did was for him, even if it was the wrong way." His words were filled with regret, but they weren't enough to erase the damage done. Amelia didn't respond. She simply turned toward Sebastian, who was sitting beside Loki, visibly shaken but beginning to feel the relief of being reunited with his mother. "We'll overcome this together," Amelia said firmly, her voice now softer. "We will rebuild our family. No more lies, no more crimes. I promise you, Sebastian, we'll find a way to move forward." Her words were filled with love and determination, and Sebastian, tears in his eyes, hugged his mother with all the strength he could muster. "I don't know how, Mom, but I know we can," he said, feeling the warmth of her embrace and the strength of a bond that not even the worst moments could destroy. Loki, ever faithful, stood beside them, wagging his tail as if he understood that this moment marked the beginning of a new chapter. The mystery had been revealed, and though the path to healing would be long, it finally felt possible. Loki's loyalty and the unconditional love between Amelia and Sebastian would now serve as the foundation to rebuild what had been lost. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for following this emotional story. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments what you thought of this journey of mystery, courage, and redemption. The truth has been uncovered, and now this family can finally begin to heal their wounds.